All right, let's roll. I want to talk to you. Excuse me. I just have a few questions. This is a Canada goose, and these birds have taken over the United States of America.
It's Canada goose, not Canadian goose. Make sure I get that right.
All of these geese refuse to do an interview with me. I'm wondering why they don't want to talk.
Check it out. Look at that lady staring that goose down.
It was coming at my face.
Canada geese can be amazing, but they also defecate on our pristine lawns, stain our youth soccer fields, and even endangered our Sully.
Birds.
But it wasn't always this way. The Canada goose as it is today is a problem that humans created. It's a story of Teddy Roosevelt and defensive umbrellas and homegrown honkers, and the surprising way that this bird from Canada ended up all over America. Found it. This right here is a plan for a Canada goose nesting tub. So that is from this manual published by the Department of the Interior and the Bureau of Fisheries and Wildlife in 1970. And it is a how-to guide for how to raise your own flock of Canada geese. In the late 60s and early 70s, Americans stocked up on these birds, and they did it for a reason. We almost hunted them to extinction, or at least expertise.
Every discipline has to have its fancy terms for simple concepts, right? So extirpated would just mean that you've lost it from a given area that's defined, but it's not extinct globally.
These migratory birds traveled south from northern states and Canadian provinces when migrating, but overhunting made them increasingly rare. The passenger pigeon had already gone extinct. It was a scary look at what could happen to the Canada goose. In fact, people thought that one subspecies, the giant Canada goose, was already extinct. The Migratory Bird Treaty Act of 1918 was a strong response, and it was inspired by conservationists like Teddy Roosevelt. It protects a lot of birds from unregulated hunting, including Canada geese. And in some cases, it set the stage for big population growth.
So what this map is showing is population trends that are based on the Breeding Birds Survey.
This is what that map looks like for a mourning dove from 1966 to 2015.
Any colors that are in blue indicate where populations have increased, and the red and the orange show where populations have decreased. And it's showing percent change per year, right? When you look at the legend, you'll see, well, plus 1.5 change per year, which is actually a very sizable increase.
This is the map for the Canada goose. That growth was protected by the Migratory Bird Treaty Act, but it was driven by something else entirely.
Ones over on this side are common eiders, and the one on the other side are king eiders. I am the Migratory Bird Program Coordinator for the state of Kentucky.
He crafts hunting regulations that conserve the bird population in the state, and that includes dealing with birds that were purposefully raised by people, like the Canada goose.
The birds that we have in right now in the lower 48 are birds that we put here.
All that stuff happened long before John started his job, but the decisions made rippled into the present and the stuff that he has to think about today. In the 60s and 70s, homegrown honkers kind of became a fad. Let me read you something from the foreword to this book. Homegrown Honkers is a timely publication because people are increasingly interested in do-it-yourself conscious. This was 60s style environmental activism, and that led them to create an instruction manual for creating your own goose population. Here's a chapter on goose husbandry. This is a breeding pen arrangement plan. Here's a plan for a floating goose nesting platform. Goose reproduction was the goal of this book and multiple symposia that were held around the same time. This environmental impact statement from 2002 features some typical stories of goose boosting by state agencies. Translocated geese, ones moved from one part of the state to another, game farm geese restored so that they could breed, and stuff like this when 1,500 geese were brought from Toronto and plunked down in Ohio. And all this stuff was common. These are just a few examples. There were PR efforts too, like Indiana's Goose for You Too program. That is what they called it. Suddenly, there were two classes of geese thanks to the Home for Honkers philosophy. The migratory ones, but also temperate nesting geese, resident geese, that stayed in a place year-round. They might migrate short distances, but they became known for staying in the same general region. Both types of birds were protected by the Migratory Bird Treaty Act, and that led to there being too many geese. In rural areas and for hunters, there are really effective tools to manage this. People like John come together to manage hunting of the goose population in a particular migratory path or flyway. They can target the hunting of resident geese by carving up a state, using analytics from careful tracking of geese, or by limiting hunting dates and bag limits, or the amount of geese that you take home with you. For example, if they have a hunting season with fewer restrictions in September, that'll only hit resident geese because the migratory ones won't have come down yet.
In a lot of cases, it's been tremendously successful. I mean, there's a lot of canted geese harvested every year, but they have certainly in some cases created problems, especially in urban areas.
At the same time we were making homegrown honkers, we were also coincidentally creating ideal goose habitats, places where predators, like hunters, were banned, and there was also a lot of green open space. And then people gave them free food. And this was all part of the plan. If you read the chapter, Honkers Moved to the City, you'll find some reservations about urban geese population, but mostly bragging. So with a strict law and no hunting, what options are left?
We're located here in Lake Barcroft, Virginia.
In Lake Barcroft, geese used to be a big problem. Because it's a community, they couldn't hunt them.
One of our residents showed me a bucket. He would be collecting a bucket a day of goose poop, and that's a lot.
Geese Peace, that's the name of David's nonprofit, was needed. They started work in 1991 as a way to curb those resident geese, and they offered trainings to other communities. It stops new geese from hatching, but it also requires a permit from Fish and Wildlife, and that requires yearly labor.
We have to get those birds off the nest first. So member number one would approach the nest with an umbrella that's open. We'll leave the nest and stay over here. This person with the umbrella keeps that goose away. You have one goose coming at you like that, and you have the gander coming at you like that.
It sounds like an adrenaline.
It is, but no one gets hurt. The other member of the party will approach the nest that is now open. You would take the egg and you would put it in a bucket full of water, like that. Now, this doesn't have enough water for it to float, but if the egg sinks, that means the air sac is not yet developed in the egg. That the air sac's not developed, it's likely lungs have not developed, so you're not suffocating something in the egg by coating it with the corn oil. Because that seals the pores, oxygen doesn't go in, CO2 doesn't go out, and the egg goes dormant.
I was amazed by how concerned David was with protecting the well-being of the geese. But really you have to be. We have strict laws that protect their safety. And if you think about it, the honkers, they aren't the ones to blame.
When they thought some of these subspecies of geese might be extinct, that's reasonable to be concerned. So it was an appropriate and good thing to bring them, into captivity, to try to, breed them and to have a reintroduction program if we care about, protecting biodiversity. When we want to conserve species, we can. And sometimes we're so darn good at it, it can get away pretty quickly.
Not every bird is as easy to spot as the Canada goose. Some people will travel miles over difficult terrain just to get a peek at rarer breeds. Such is the subject of journalist Mark Obmasik's The Big Year, now available on Audible. Audible is where so many inspiring voices and compelling stories open listeners up to new experiences and ways of thinking. With their convenient app, members can access Audible anytime, at the gym, while commuting, during viciously competitive bird races, and on any device. Your story will always pick up right where you left off. And right now, Vox Watchers can access a special offer at audible.com/Vox. That's audible.com/VOX. Start listening with a 30-day Audible trial, and your first audiobook, plus 2 Audible originals, are free. Visit audible.com/VOX or text VOX to 500-500. Audible doesn't directly impact our editorial, but their support makes videos like this possible.